Now this, tonight a mother is charged with murder after the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office says she shot her 4 children. 2 died and the other 2 are recovering in a hospital. The Sheriff's Office says the woman called 911 early yesterday morning from a gas station.
Neighbors in Porter, Texas saw them on Friday afternoon. 4 children walking down Spear Valley Lane, smiling, waving, asking to pet the neighbor's little Yorkie. Happy kids, normal kids. Less than 12 hours later, those same children were shot inside their mother's car at a gas station an hour away from home. Year-old boy, gone. The year-old baby girl, gone. The year-old, fighting for their lives. And the person who pulled that trigger, the person who called 911 to report it, their own mother, 31-year-old, Oninda Romulus. But here's what makes this case even darker. This wasn't some random act of violence. This was a woman with a pattern. 3 years earlier, she appeared on paternity court, pregnant, manipulating 2 different men, playing games, lying. The judge called her out, told her straight up, you ran from this one to that one, back to this one. Make it make sense, because what we're about to uncover is a trail of chaos that ended in the most unthinkable way. You already know what we do at Shadow Crimes TV. We break stuff down, so let's get into it right away. To understand what happened on that Saturday morning in Angleton, Texas, we need to go back to when Oninda Romulus wasn't making headlines for murder, but for something else entirely, manipulation. 3 years before those gunshots rang out, Oninda walked into a paternity court with one mission: figure out who fathered her son Ocario. But this wasn't a simple paternity case. Girl, this was a whole circus. She had 2 men on the line: Dwayne Seymour, her fiance of 4 years, and Jeremy Covington, a man she called a mutual friend. Let me tell you something, the way this woman moved, it was calculated. She had Dwayne believing he was the father, had him at doctor's visits, had him playing daddy, had him thinking they were building a life together. He even proposed to her with his mother's ring. But Oninda, she was out here playing both sides. See, her relationship with Dwayne had gotten rocky. She claimed he was cheating on her, said she heard from a friend that he was hooking up with someone behind a dumpster at a strip club. Dwayne denied it, said it never happened, but Oninda, she didn't care about the truth. She wanted revenge. So what did she do? She slept with Jeremy Covington, out of spite. That's what she admitted in court. I cheated on him basically out of spite. And here's where it gets messy. She slept with Dwayne around the same time. We're talking a 2.5-week window where she's intimate with both men. Then boom, she's pregnant. Now any reasonable person would sit down and think, okay, I need to be honest here. I need to figure this out. But Oninda, nah, she played the game differently. She told Dwayne the baby was his, let him believe it, let him invest emotionally, financially, spiritually. He was there, he was present. Meanwhile, Jeremy, she's calling him too, telling him he might be the father, letting him buy clothes, diapers, shoes, letting him keep the baby for weeks at a time. And when it came time to give birth, Dwayne wasn't at the hospital, Jeremy was. Jeremy's mother even came through with gifts, welcomed Oninda into the family. But here's the kicker. On the birth certificate, she put Jeremy's name down as the father. So now you got Dwayne feeling betrayed, confused, heartbroken. You got Jeremy thinking he's a dad, stepping up, doing what he's supposed to do. And you got Oninda in the middle, controlling the narrative, playing both sides. The judge in that courtroom saw right through it. She told Oninda, you ran from this one to go to this one, then you ran back from this one, back to this one. Now that the baby is born, you're still doing the same thing. The judge wasn't playing. She said, one thing you're not gonna do. You might be able to out-talk and manipulate them, but you can't do it to me. Then came the DNA results. The tension in that courtroom was thick. Dwayne was sitting there hoping, praying the child was his despite everything. Jeremy was standing there confident. He'd been in that boy's life for 2 years. The results came back. Dwayne Seymour, not the father. Okay, so it's Jeremy then, right? That's what everyone thought. That's what Oninda thought. But when the judge read the second results, everything stopped. The room went silent. You could hear people breathing. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Dwayne had already been ruled out, sitting there with his head down, processing the fact that he'd invested all that time, all that emotion, into a child that wasn't his. Jeremy was standing there, confident, thinking, okay, it's me then. He'd been in that boy's life for 2 years, changed diapers, bought clothes, kept him for weeks at a time. His mom had welcomed Oninda into the family. This had to be it. This had to be the answer. The judge looked down at the paper in her hands. The courtroom was waiting. Cameras were rolling. 2 men were holding their breath. And Oninda, she was standing there, probably already planning what she was gonna say when Jeremy was confirmed as the father. Jeremy Covington? Not the father either. Girl, let me tell you, the look on Oninda's face said everything. She tried to play it off, said the results had to be wrong. But the judge shut that down real quick. Men lie, women lie, DNA don't. Oninda's had been sleeping with someone else, a whole other person she never mentioned, never brought to court, never acknowledged. The judge looked at her and said something that hits different now. Knowing what we know, stop thinking about yourself. But Oninda didn't stop. She kept moving through life the same way. Chaos, lies, manipulation. She eventually left Georgia, where she was originally from, and moved to Texas. Ended up in Montgomery County in a quiet neighborhood in Porter. A house on Spear Valley Lane. Neighbors said she'd only been there a few months. Most of them never even talked to her. But they saw her kids, 4 of them. The eldest boy, then a year-old girl, and year-old boy, and the baby a girl. One neighbor, who wanted to stay anonymous, told reporters she'd see the children walking by regularly. They'd stop to pet her little Yorkie. They'd wave. They'd say hi. She saw them on Friday, just one day before everything happened. She said they seemed happy, normal, just kids being kids. She thought she'd see them again on Monday. She never did. Oninda had sole custody of those children, all 4 of them. How she got sole custody with her background, with her history, that's a question people are still asking. But she had them. They lived with her in that house in Porter. And on Friday night, everything was normal. The kids were outside playing. Neighbors saw them. Life seemed fine. But something happened between Friday evening and Saturday morning. Something that made Oninda pack those 4 children into her car and drive. Not to school, not to a relative's house, not to a safe place. She drove them an hour south, down to Brazoria County, to Angleton, Texas, to a Shell gas station off Highway 288. And that's where this story takes its darkest turn. So what happened between Friday evening and early Saturday morning? That's the question. Investigators are still trying to piece together. What we know is this: Oninda's house in Porter, Montgomery County sits about an hour north of Angleton in Brazoria County. That's not a short drive. That's not a quick trip. That's intentional. That's planned. Sometime in those early morning hours, while most people were asleep, Oninda got her 4 children ready. She put them in her vehicle and started driving south on Highway 288. Now think about that for a second. 4 kids in a car in the middle of the night. Where did they think they were going? Did the older ones ask questions? Did the baby fall asleep in her car seat? We don't know what was said in that car. We don't know what those children were thinking, but we know where they ended up. A Shell gas station off Highway 288 in Angleton, Texas. It's a spot you'd pass without thinking twice, just a regular gas station, the kind of place you stop for snacks on a road trip, fill up your tank before work, grab a coffee at dawn. But on this Saturday morning, it became a crime scene. Neighbors back in Porter had no idea what was happening. They were asleep in their beds, thinking about the weekend ahead, maybe planning to see those same kids walking down the street again, stopping to pet that little Yorkie. But Oninda wasn't coming back, not with all four of her children anyway. Investigators would later spend 12 hours at that house on Spear Valley Lane, going through everything, collecting evidence, trying to understand. They towed away a car from the driveway, they combed through rooms, they looked for answers, but the real answers, those were an hour south at that gas station. 4:48 in the morning. That's when the call came in. Brazoria County Sheriff's Office got a 911 call. The voice on the other end? Oninda Romulus. And what she told them made deputies scramble. She said she shot her children, not someone else shot them, not there's been an accident, not help something terrible happened. No, she told them she was the one who pulled the trigger. Deputies rushed to that Shell station. When they pulled up, they found Oninda outside the vehicle, and inside, 4 children, all of them with gunshot wounds. The deputies didn't hesitate. They immediately started performing life-saving measures, doing everything they could while waiting for medical help to arrive, because 2 of those children were still alive, still breathing, still fighting. But the 3-year-old boy, he was already gone. The 3-year-old baby girl, she was gone too. The 8-year-old boy and the 9-year-old girl were in critical condition, barely holding on. The deputies worked on them, trying to keep them stable until the ambulances arrived. And Oninda, she was just standing there, waiting. When medical help finally got there, they airlifted the 2 surviving children to a Houston area hospital. Life flight. That's how serious their injuries were. These babies needed trauma surgeons, intensive care, round-the-clock monitoring. The scene at that gas station was something no first responder should ever have to see. 4 children shot inside a vehicle, a mother who called it in herself, shell casings, blood, the kind of trauma that sticks with you forever. Sheriff Bo Stallman would later describe it as an unthinkable, unimaginable tragedy. And he wasn't exaggerating. This was a mother. These were her babies. The children she gave birth to, raised, tucked into bed at night, and she shot them. The weapon she used? Deputies found it. They're not releasing details about the caliber or exactly how many shots were fired, but they confirmed she had a gun and she used it. Inside that vehicle, in the early morning darkness, Oninda Romulus opened fire on her own children. The 3-year-old old enough to understand what was happening, old enough to be terrified. The 9-year-old girl probably trying to protect her younger siblings. The 8-year-old boy confused, scared, and the 3-year-old baby too young to even comprehend. 2 of them didn't survive. 2 of them did, and those 2 survivors? Girl, they became witnesses. They saw everything. They know exactly what their mother did. Now here's what makes this even more chilling. Oninda didn't try to run. She didn't try to hide what she did. She didn't drive off or make up a story. She called 911 herself and waited for police to arrive. Some people might think that shows remorse. But let me tell you something, calling 911 after you shoot your 4 children doesn't make you remorseful. It makes you calculated. Because by the time deputies arrived, the damage was done. 2 children were already dead. The other 2 were barely alive. There was nothing left to save. Nothing left to undo. Oninda was arrested right there at the scene. No chase, no resistance. She was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder for the 13-year-old boy and the 3-year-old girl. She was also charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for the 8-year-old boy and the 9-year-old girl.
Right now, a mom is held in jail with a $14 million bond, charged with murder after the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office says she shot her 4 children.
Yeah, such a tragedy. 2 did not survive. The other 2 are now recovering in a hospital. Our Ugochi Aloka joining us live now with what neighbors are saying. And Ugochi, where did this family live?
Alona and Jacob, jail records show that 31-year-old Oninda Romulus lived in a home in Porter that is about an hour away north of Angleton, where her kids were found shot in a car. Now, the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office says that they initially found out about the shooting through a 911 call. Take a listen to when deputies were first dispatched to the scene.
We need multiple ambulances.
KHU11 got this exclusive video Saturday evening of investigators going in and out of Romelus's home. They were there for around 12 hours, appearing to collect evidence. They also towed away a car from the driveway. Neighbors tell us Romelus lived only at this house for about a few months. Many had not interacted with her at all. Residents are feeling uneasy after learning Romelus is accused of shooting her 4 children and killing 2 of them. One neighbor, who says they often saw Romelus's children, calls this shooting a terrible tragedy.
Her bond? $14 million. $5 million for each murder charge. $2 million for each assault charge. $14 million. That's not a bond you make. That's not a bond anyone's making. That's the state of Texas saying you're not going anywhere. You're staying right here in this jail cell until we figure out exactly what happened and why. As Oninda sat in the Brazoria County Jail, investigators got to work. They had to piece together not just what happened at that gas station, but what led up to it, because this didn't just happen out of nowhere. Something brought Oninda to that point. Something made her drive her children an hour away from home in the middle of the night. Investigators went back to her house in Montgomery County. They were there for 12 hours. 12 hours. Going through rooms, looking at documents, checking phones, talking to neighbors, collecting anything that might give them answers. Sheriff Wesley Doolittle of Montgomery County assisted with the investigation, since that's where Oninda lived. His deputies helped process that house on Spear Valley Lane, searching for clues. They towed away a vehicle from the driveway. They took evidence. They documented everything. But the most important witnesses, they were in a Houston area hospital, recovering from gunshot wounds, the survivors. These children had been through hell. They watched their mother shoot them. They watched their older brother die. They watched their baby sister die. They were shot themselves and had to fight to stay alive. And now detectives needed to talk to them. The interviews happened once the children were stable enough. And according to Sheriff Stallman, those children are cooperating. They're telling investigators what happened in that car, what their mother said, what their mother did, everything. Those statements are critical because Oninda can say whatever she wants. She can make up excuses, try to justify what she did, claim something else happened, but her children were there. They saw it, they lived through it, and they're talking. Investigators also interviewed Oninda herself. She's been questioned, but the sheriff's office isn't releasing details about what she said or what her motive might have been. When reporters asked about motive at the press conference, the response was simple.
Yesterday, Brazoria County deputies responded to an unthinkable, unimaginable tragedy. This event has shaken our community, and we are all feeling the loss. While this remains an active investigation, I do want to share what details with you that I can at this point. Evidence indicates that the driver of the vehicle identifies as a 31-year-old Oninda Romulus. She's the mother of the 4 children involved. All 4 children have sustained gunshot wounds. Sadly, the 8-year-old boy and the 8-year-old girl did not survive. We are thankful to report that a boy and a girl are now in stable condition.
But speculation is running wild in the community. People want to know why. Why would a mother do this? What could possibly drive someone to shoot their own children? Some people wondered if there was a custody battle, but investigators confirmed Oninda had sole custody of all 4 children. There was no fight over them. They were hers. Others wondered if she had a history of mental illness, but again, investigators aren't releasing that information. They said it's part of the ongoing investigation. What we do know is that Oninda Romulus has a criminal history. She's originally from Georgia, and records show she's had run-ins with the law before, but the specifics, not released yet. The sheriff's office is being tight-lipped about a lot of details. They have to be. This is an active case. There are surviving witnesses. There's evidence still being analyzed. They can't compromise the investigation by putting everything out there, but the basics are clear. The evidence shows this happened inside the vehicle. The evidence shows Oninda is the shooter, and the evidence shows she called 911 herself after it happened. By Saturday afternoon, the news was everywhere. A mother arrested for shooting her 4 children, 2 dead, 2 fighting for their lives. The community was in shock. Sheriff Bo Stallman held a press conference to address what happened, standing alongside Sheriff Wesley Doolittle of Montgomery County. When those children were first airlifted to the hospital, they were in critical condition. They were barely hanging on, but they fought, they survived. And now they're stable, recovering, talking to investigators. Sheriff Stallman was clear about what the evidence shows. He explained that she called the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office at 4:48 that morning. When deputies arrived, they immediately began providing life-saving measures to each child until medical help could arrive. Oninda was arrested and charged. 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Total bond set at $14 million. Reporters at the press conference had questions. They wanted to know about motive. They wanted to know about Oninda's background. They wanted to know why she was in Brazoria County when she lived in Montgomery County. But Sheriff Stallman couldn't answer most of those questions. This is still an ongoing investigation, he said repeatedly. There are still many details that cannot be released at this point. When asked about what investigators found at Oninda's home in Montgomery County, he said that's exactly where her permanent residence was. Again, that's part of the ongoing investigation. When asked if she had a criminal history, he said, again, that's part of the ongoing investigation that we continue to look into. And I can assure you that we will do everything in our power to find justice for these children. One reporter asked about the weapon. What kind of gun was used? What caliber? Sheriff Stallman responded, it was a weapon that she did utilize and she did shoot. I'm not gonna tell you all the calibers and all the details. It's not time for that. Another reporter asked why Oninda was in Brazoria County when she lived in Montgomery County. That is part of the active and ongoing investigation that we're looking into, he said. The sheriff's office wasn't trying to be difficult. They were protecting the integrity of the case because this is going to trial. There are surviving witnesses, there's evidence being analyzed. Every detail matters. What they could confirm is that Oninda has been interviewed. She's talked to investigators, but what she said, that's not public information yet. They also confirmed that the surviving children have been interviewed and are cooperating. Those kids are telling their story. They're providing testimony that will be crucial when this case goes to court. One thing the sheriff made clear, the community's support has been overwhelming. The prayers, the messages, and support shown for these children and also for the first responders involved in this are more than what words can express. Because this wasn't just traumatic for the family, this was traumatic for every deputy who responded to that scene, every paramedic who tried to save those children, every investigator who had to process that vehicle, every person who had to look at what a mother did to her own babies. Sheriff Stallman ended the press conference with this: "It is impossible to make sense of a senseless tragedy like this, but we will do everything we can to seek justice for these children." Senseless, that's the word that keeps coming up, because there's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no reason that justifies what happened. 4 children were shot by their mother, 2 of them died, and the community is left trying to understand how something like this could happen. Oninda is currently being held in the Brazoria County Jail. She had to appear before a judge to be magistrated and have her bond amount set. $5 million for each murder charge. $2 million for each aggravated assault charge. That $14 million bond isn't just a number. It's a message. It says you're not getting out. You're staying right here until justice is served. And justice, that's going to take time. This case is still developing. Investigators are still collecting evidence. The surviving children are still recovering. The legal process is just beginning. But one thing is certain: Oninda Romulus will face a courtroom. She will have to answer for what she did. And those 2 surviving children, they will be there to tell their story. 2 children are gone. A 13-year-old boy who had his whole life ahead of him. A 13-year-old girl who barely got to experience the world. Their names haven't been widely released to protect the surviving siblings, but they mattered. They were loved. They were seen by neighbors just hours before they died. 2 children survived, an 8-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl who will carry the trauma of that morning for the rest of their lives. They will remember what their mother did. They will remember their brother and sister. They will have to rebuild their lives, knowing the person who was supposed to protect them is the person who hurt them most. The neighbor in Porter who saw those kids on Friday, who watched them stop to pet her Yorkie, who waved at them as they walked by, she said it best: "Heartbreaking to think that anything could be so bad that you have to take your children's life. I don't understand." And that's the truth. Nobody understands. Not the neighbors, not the community, not the investigators working this case. Because there is no understanding something like this. Oninda Romulus had a pattern. The paternity court case 3 years ago showed that manipulation, lies, chaos. Running from one situation to another without taking accountability. The judge told her then to stop thinking about herself. But she didn't stop. She kept moving through life the same way, leaving destruction in her wake. And on that Saturday morning, the destruction became deadly. This case is still unfolding, as detectives continue to uncover more evidence, as the surviving children continue to heal and provide their testimony. As the legal proceedings move forward, we'll be here bringing you updates. But what we already know is enough. A mother drove her 4 children to a gas station and shot them. 2 died. 2 survived. And now a community is left grieving, questioning, and searching for answers that may never fully come. For the 2 children who didn't make it, may they rest in peace. For the 2 children who survived, may they find healing, safety, and a future free from the trauma their mother inflicted. And for everyone watching this case, may it serve as a reminder that domestic violence doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes the danger comes from the person who's supposed to love you most. This is Shadowed Crimes TV. Drop your thoughts in the comments, but remember there are always multiple sides to every story, and the truth is still unfolding. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you true crime stories daily, cases you know and ones you don't. Stay with us as we shine a light on stories that need to be heard, because every victim deserves to have their story told. Rest in peace to those 2 babies taken too soon. May the truth come to light, and may justice be served.